What if the parts of you that feel the most natural were never chosen? What if your independence, your humor, your emotional distance aren't personality traits, but adaptations? You don't remember becoming this way. That's the point. No one wakes up one day and decides to become guarded, or hyper-independent, or emotionally distant. It happens quietly, gradually, under pressure. And by the time you notice it, it already feels like you. We tend to think of trauma as something dramatic, obvious, visible. But trauma isn't defined by the event. It's defined by overwhelm without support. It's what happens when your nervous system experiences more than it can process, and no one helps you regulate it. When that happens, your body adapts. And adaptation is intelligent. Your system asks one question: how do I survive this? Not how do I thrive, not how do I stay open. Just how do I survive? And the answer becomes a pattern. And the pattern becomes automatic. And what is automatic starts to feel like identity. Your body solved a problem your mind couldn't. And you've been living inside that solution ever since. Let's start with independence. On the surface, it looks admirable. Self-sufficient, capable, strong. But sometimes, independence is born from absence. If as a child your emotional needs were minimized, dismissed, or simply unnoticed, you learn something quickly. Needing doesn't work. So you stop needing. You handle it yourself. You solve your own problems. You stop asking. And eventually, you stop expecting. As an adult, this can look like pride in doing everything alone, difficulty receiving help, discomfort when someone tries to take care of you. You might even feel irritated when someone offers support. Because somewhere in your system, support doesn't feel safe. Feels unreliable. Needing no one is often a response to no one being available. And what once protected you now isolates you. Now let's talk about emotional shutdown. If expressing sadness led to dismissal, if anger led to punishment, if vulnerability led to shame, your nervous system learned restraint. Expression wasn't safe. So suppression became survival. You became low maintenance, easygoing, not that emotional. But beneath that calm exterior is often a body that learned to freeze. Not because it didn't feel, but because feeling wasn't allowed. Over time, this turns into numbness. You struggle to identify what you feel. You go blank during conflict. You disconnect when emotions intensify. And people might call you distant. But distance was once protection. If expression wasn't safe, silence became survival. And now, silence feels like personality. Some adaptations are louder. Your humor, your charm, your achievement. If being yourself didn't secure attention or affection, you may have learned to perform. You became the funny one, the smart one, the successful one. You turned pain into punchlines, anxiety into productivity, insecurity into ambition. Because being impressive felt safer than being vulnerable. If love felt conditional, performance became currency. You learned that approval reduces risk. So you overachieve, you overdeliver, you overextend. And when someone asks how you're doing, you say you're fine. Because being fine keeps everything stable. But underneath the humor and the competence is often a nervous system that equates worth with output. If being yourself didn't feel safe, being impressive did. Then there's overthinking, hyper-awareness, constant scanning. If you grew up in unpredictability, where moods shifted without warning, where tension could rise without explanation, your system adapted by watching carefully. You learn to read micro-expressions, tone changes, silences. You replay conversations, analyze pauses, predict outcomes. Not because you're dramatic, because your safety once depended on anticipation. Overthinking isn't weakness. It's rehearsal. It's your nervous system trying to prevent surprise. And when calm feels unfamiliar, your mind fills the silence with preparation. Because unpredictability once meant danger. So predictability became your responsibility. Here's the uncomfortable truth. These patterns are intelligent. They work. They protected you. They allowed you to function in environments that may not have supported you fully. But they formed under pressure. Before you had full choice, before you had context, before you had agency. You didn't choose your personality. You refined your survival. And when survival strategies run long enough, they disguise themselves as identity. You say, "That's just how I am." But is it? Or is it how you adapted? If these traits formed under pressure, who are you without the pressure? If you didn't have to earn love, would you still overperform? If disappointment wasn't expected, would you still avoid needing? If emotional expression felt safe, would you still suppress? Would calm feel foreign? Would support feel uncomfortable? Would peace feel boring? Sometimes growth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about meeting who you were, before survival took over. Most people live their entire lives believing this is simply who they are. And maybe that's enough for them. But some people get curious. Not to fix themselves. Not to judge their adaptations. But to understand what shaped them. Because awareness doesn't erase survival. It expands choice. And sometimes, the most honest work happens quietly. Privately. Away from performance. Away from noise. Just you, and the patterns that built you. And the question, was this me? Or was this protection?